The sleek research vessel Nebula Seeker shuddered violently as it entered the unfamiliar solar system. Inside the ship's cramped control chamber, Soreth's 4 eyes widened in alarm as warning lights flashed across the console. The small gray-skinned alien frantically tapped translucent displays with his 6-fingered hands. Gravitational anomaly detected, the ship's computer announced in the musical language of the Silesian hegemony. Navigation systems compromised. Soreth's breathing quickened, the membranes covering his gill slits fluttering rapidly. This was supposed to be a routine survey mission to catalog plant specimens from unexplored worlds. The Silesian Botanical Council had specifically chosen him for his caution and attention to detail. Now, those same qualities made the growing disaster all the more terrifying. Computer, initiate emergency protocols. Send distress signal to the nearest hegemony outpost. Soreth commanded, his voice unnaturally high with stress. Unable to comply. Communication array damaged by gravitational shear. The third planet in the system grew larger in the view screen. Blue oceans and swirling white clouds covered its surface, deceptively peaceful against the black void of space. Soreth knew better. This world was designated XD3, an extreme death world, in hegemony records, a planet so hostile that only the most primitive life forms could possibly survive there. Computer, all power to shields and emergency landing systems. The ship plummeted through the atmosphere, metal hull glowing red with friction. Soreth strapped himself into the crash harness, eyes closed tightly as the vessel bucked and shuddered. A deafening roar filled the cabin. Something critical exploded near the engine compartment. With a bone-jarring impact, the Nebula Seeker smashed through a dense canopy of trees and slammed into the ground. The force of the crash knocked Soreth unconscious despite the protection of his harness. Hours passed before he awoke to the sound of the ship's emergency systems beeping softly. Smoke hung in the air. Soreth coughed painfully as he unbuckled himself. His entire body ached from the impact. The quick check revealed his environmental suit was intact, though his left arm had suffered a minor fracture. "Computer, status report," he croaked. Silence. The main systems were offline. Only emergency lighting illuminated the twisted interior of what had been his home for the past 3 cycles. Soreth limped to the storage locker and retrieved his field kit, grateful that at least his atmospheric filter and gravity compensator remained functional. Without them, he wouldn't survive 5 minutes on this deadly world. A quick scan of his surroundings showed the ship had crashed in a heavily forested area. Tall trees with green foliage towered overhead. The air outside registered as highly toxic, nearly 21% oxygen, a level that would slowly poison his system even with filters. The gravity read at 9.8 meters per second squared, almost 3 times the gravity of his homeworld. Even with his compensator, movement would be exhausting. Emergency beacon status. Soreth whispered to his wrist computer, the last functioning piece of technology he could rely on. Beacon damaged during impact. Repair required, came the emotionless reply. Soreth slumped against the cracked wall of the ship. Without the beacon, no one would know where to find him. The hegemony wouldn't send a rescue mission without a signal, especially not to a death world. The horrible reality of his situation began to sink in. He was stranded on the most dangerous planet in this sector, possibly forever. A strange sound from outside made his sensory tendrils stiffen. Something was moving through the underbrush. Soreth peered cautiously through the cracked viewport. A large brown creature with thick fur and a powerful build was investigating the crash site. Its size suggested it was a predator, and its sharp teeth confirmed Soreth's fears. The creature, a bear, though Soreth had no way of knowing this, sniffed at the disturbed soil near the ship, then raised its head and looked directly at the viewport. Soreth ducked down, heart racing. The legends about death worlds spoke of monstrous animals evolved to survive in the harshest conditions imaginable. If this was an example, the stories hadn't exaggerated. The bear lost interest after a few minutes and wandered off. Soreth allowed himself to breathe again. He needed to assess the damage and see if repairs were possible. Moving carefully in the increased gravity, he gathered his scientific equipment and emergency supplies. The ship's rear section had been completely destroyed in the crash. Critical components were scattered across a wide area, many broken beyond repair. The communication array was a twisted mess of metal and circuitry. Even if he had the proper tools, which he didn't, fixing it would be impossible. Night was falling. Temperature readings showed a dramatic drop, another deadly feature of this world. Soreth secured the remaining intact section of the ship as best he could and activated his thermal regulator. As darkness enveloped the forest, strange sounds echoed among the trees. Howls, calls, rustling movements. The nightlife of Earth was active and terrifying to the stranded alien. Unable to sleep, Soreth reviewed what little information his databases contained about this planet. Earth, as the locals called it, had developed carbon-based life forms despite its hostile environment. Some primitive sentient species had evolved here, though most Silesian scientists considered this impossible. How could intelligence develop in a place where every aspect of the environment was trying to kill you? A distant sound caught his attention, rhythmic thumping that didn't match any natural pattern. Soreth enhanced his audio receptors and listened carefully. Voices, unmistakably voices, speaking a language his translator couldn't process. Sunrise revealed two figures approaching the crash site. They walked upright on two legs, wore artificial coverings on their bodies, and carried equipment Soreth didn't recognize. Humans, the dominant species of this death-trapped planet. Soreth stayed hidden, watching in amazement as these beings moved effortlessly through the crushing gravity, breathing the toxic air without any protection. They examined the wreckage with obvious curiosity, but showed no fear of the deadly environment that surrounded them. "What kind of creatures are you?" Soreth whispered. "To call this hell a home." For 3 Earth weeks, Soreth observed the humans from a safe distance. He had established a small observation post on a rocky ridge overlooking the town of Pine Creek. His portable scanner recorded endless data about these strange death-world creatures who called themselves humans. The gravity compensator strapped to his chest hummed constantly, struggling against Earth's crushing pull. Without it, Soreth's bones would likely shatter under the pressure. His atmospheric filters worked overtime, converting the oxygen-rich air into something his respiratory system could tolerate. Both devices were running dangerously low on power. "Remarkable," Soreth muttered as he watched a human child fall from a playground structure, scrape her knee, cry briefly, then return to playing minutes later. On his homeworld, such an impact would require immediate medical attention. Here, it was barely noteworthy. He recorded everything in his field journal. Humans appear to possess extraordinary resilience. Their young recover from physical trauma at rates that defy Silesian medical understanding. The most puzzling observations involved human consumption habits. Through his long-range scanner, Soreth had witnessed humans deliberately ingesting substances that his analyzer identified as toxic. They drank fermented grain beverages containing ethanol, a powerful neurotoxin. They flavored their food with capsaicin, a chemical defense mechanism evolved by plants to prevent consumption. Some even consumed methylxanthine stimulants every morning, substances that would cause heart failure in most galactic species. Are they immune to everything? Soreth wondered aloud as he watched a group of humans voluntarily exposing their skin to ultraviolet radiation on the town's small beach. They're lying in cancer-causing radiation for pleasure. His daily routine involved careful movement through the forest to various observation points. Each step required immense effort against Earth's gravity, even with the compensator. Soreth had lost considerable body mass since the crash, his frame not designed for such exertion. On the 23rd day, disaster struck. While relocating to a new observation point, his gravity compensator emitted an alarming beep, followed by a sudden shutdown. The full force of Earth's gravity instantly pressed down on Soreth's slender body. He collapsed to the forest floor, feeling as though a transport ship was sitting on his chest. Panic set in as he struggled to breathe. With trembling hands, he attempted to restart the device, but the power cell was completely drained. His atmospheric filter would be next, leaving him to slowly suffocate in the oxygen-rich air. A rustle in the underbrush nearby froze him in place. From between the trees emerged a massive creature with golden fur, sharp teeth, and predatory eyes. Soreth's research identified it as a mountain lion, an apex predator of this region. The cat stalked closer, clearly sensing Soreth's vulnerability. Without his compensator, he couldn't flee. His emergency stunner lay uselessly in his pack, too heavy to reach under the crushing gravity. This is how I die, Soreth thought, consumed by a death-world predator. The mountain lion crouched, preparing to pounce, when a sharp crack echoed through the forest. The predator yowled and flowed into the undergrowth. Moments later, heavy footsteps approached. "Good Lord," a deep voice said. "What in heaven's name are you?" Through blurry vision, Soreth saw a tall human figure standing over him. The human wore weather-beaten clothes and carried a walking stick. A patch on the shoulder read Forest Service. "Help," Soreth managed to say through his translator, the device struggling to convert his language to English. The human, a forest ranger named Michael Harrington, though Soreth didn't know this yet, hesitated only briefly before kneeling beside the alien. "You're in bad shape, buddy," Michael said, examining the failed gravity compensator. "I don't know what this thing is, but you clearly need it." To Soreth's surprise, the human lifted him as though he weighed nothing, carrying him through the forest to a small cabin hidden among the trees. Inside, Michael gently placed Soreth on a bed. "I'm Michael," he said slowly. "Can you understand me?" "Yes," Soreth replied through his translator. "I am Soreth, botanical researcher. Ship crashed. Need gravity compensator repaired." Michael examined the device. "I was an electrical engineer before I decided humans annoyed me too much," he said with a wry smile. "Let me see what I can do." For hours, Michael worked on the compensator while Soreth observed, amazed at the human's casual strength and dexterity in Earth's crushing gravity. Using simple tools and improvised parts, Michael managed to restore partial power to the device. "It's not perfect," he said, helping Soreth strap it back on, "but it should take some of the pressure off." The relief was immediate. Soreth could breathe again, could move, though with difficulty. "Why help me?" he asked. Michael shrugged. "Why wouldn't I? You needed help." Over the next few days, Soreth's perspective shifted dramatically. From the safety of Michael's cabin, he continued his observations, but now with the benefit of direct interaction. Michael asked endless questions about galactic society, while Soreth questioned him about human physiology and adaptability. "You don't understand," Michael laughed when Soreth expressed amazement at humans' caffeine consumption. "Half the people in town couldn't function without their morning coffee. On my world, that amount would cause immediate cardiac arrest." Soreth explained. Most surprising was Michael's reaction to learning about Earth's classification as an extreme death world. "Makes sense," he said, completely unfazed. "Most places try to kill you if you don't respect them. Earth's no different." When Soreth shared the Silesian understanding that human aggression and resilience made them potentially the most dangerous species in the galaxy, Michael actually laughed. "We're dangerous because we drink hot sauce and can fall down without breaking. Wait until you learn about our music and poetry." As his atmospheric filter began to fail, Michael helped fashion a crude replacement using Earth materials. It wasn't perfect, but it bought time. The hegemony believes beings like you couldn't possibly develop advanced civilization, Soreth admitted one evening. That surviving on a world like this would make you too aggressive, too focused on mere survival to achieve cultural sophistication. Michael responded by showing Soreth his book collection, playing classical music, and explaining human art. "We don't just survive here," he said. "This is paradise to us. It's home." For the first time, Soreth began to understand. What appeared to be a hostile death world to him was perfectly calibrated for human life. Their resilience wasn't just physical, it was ingrained in their perspective, their ability to find beauty in a world that should, by all galactic standards, be impossible to inhabit. "I've been wrong about your species," Soreth admitted. "We've all been wrong." The peaceful arrangement between Soreth and Michael came to an abrupt end one stormy morning. Rain pounded against the cabin roof as lightning flashed across the sky. Soreth had never experienced such a violent weather pattern. On his homeworld, weather was carefully controlled by atmospheric regulators. "Is this normal?" Soreth asked, his 4 eyes wide with alarm as the cabin shook with thunder. Michael nodded calmly while placing buckets to catch leaks. "Just a summer thunderstorm. Nothing to worry about." A tremendous crack split the air as lightning struck a tall pine near the cabin. The tree burst into flames despite the rain. Within minutes, the fire spread to nearby trees. "We need to go," Michael said, suddenly urgent. He grabbed an emergency pack and Soreth's equipment. "Forest fire. It'll reach us soon." Soreth moved as quickly as his gravity compensator allowed, following Michael through the driving rain. The smoke from the spreading fire made his atmospheric filters strain and sputter. They had barely made it half a mile when Soreth's compensator failed again, sending him crashing to the ground. "I cannot." Soreth gasped, the weight of Earth's gravity crushing his chest. Michael tried to carry him, but the steep, muddy path made it impossible. "I'll get help," he promised, placing Soreth under the shelter of a rocky overhang. "Stay here." Hours passed. The fire approached, its orange glow visible through the trees. Soreth's atmospheric filter began to fail, the toxic oxygen slowly poisoning his system. His vision blurred as he struggled to stay conscious. The sound of voices roused him. Not just Michael's, but others. Soreth tried to hide, but he couldn't move. Flashlight beams cut through the smoky darkness. "Over here," Michael called. "He's an alien. His ship crashed. He needs medical help." 2 humans in bright yellow gear appeared beside Michael. Their faces showed shock behind their protective masks. "What the hell?" one of them muttered. "Listen," Michael explained quickly. "He can't breathe our air properly and our gravity is crushing him. We need to get him somewhere safe." To Soreth's surprise, the humans hesitated only briefly before nodding. One spoke into a radio. "Base, we have an unusual rescue situation. Prepare for emergency medical transport. And call Dr. Mercer at the university. Tell her it's about her research on exobiology. Tell her she was right." The next few hours passed in a blur for Soreth. The forest firefighters constructed a makeshift stretcher that accommodated his alien physiology. They carried him to a waiting vehicle, then to a helicopter. Throughout the journey, one of them monitored his breathing and tried to repair his atmospheric filter. Soreth drifted in and out of consciousness. The last thing he remembered was being carried into a brightly lit building, the humans shouting medical terms he didn't understand. He awoke in a sealed room. The air pressure and composition had been altered to more closely match his homeworld. A device beside his bed hummed softly, a new, more powerful gravity compensator. Soreth could breathe more easily than he had since the crash. A woman in a white coat stood watching him through a glass partition. She was small for a human, with dark hair streaked with gray and eyes that sparkled with intense curiosity. When she saw Soreth was awake, she smiled and spoke into an intercom. "Hello, I'm Dr. Eliza Mercer. How are you feeling?" Soreth's translator converted her words. "Better," he replied cautiously. "Where am I?" "You're at my research facility at Pacific Northwest University. The firefighters brought you here after Michael Harrington explained your situation." She paused. "I've spent my career studying the possibility of alien life. Most of my colleagues thought I was wasting my time. Now I have proof." Over the next few days, Dr. Mercer helped Soreth recover while asking endless questions about Silesian biology and culture. She was fascinated by his descriptions of the galactic community, and especially by Earth's classification as an extreme death world. "From your perspective, I can see why," she said, laughing. "But to us, this is perfect. We evolved here after all." Xorth learned that Dr. Mercer had kept his existence relatively secret, telling only a small team of trusted colleagues. "If the government found out about you, they might take over. I want to establish peaceful contact, not have you dissected in a military lab." One morning, Dr. Mercer entered the room looking worried. Michael was with her. "We have a problem," she said. "Someone leaked information. There are government vehicles approaching the facility." Before Xorth could respond, the door burst open. Men and women in dark suits entered, led by a stern-faced human with close-cropped gray hair. "Dr. Mercer," the man said, "I'm Agent Wilson with National Security. We've been informed you're harboring an extraterrestrial entity." Dr. Mercer stepped protectively in front of Xorth. "This is a scientific discovery, not a security threat. My team has established communication and—" "This is now a matter of national security," Agent Wilson interrupted. "The alien will be transferred to a secure facility for further evaluation." Xorth's translator struggled with the rapid conversation, but he understood enough to feel a growing sense of dread. The Silesian hegemony had warned about primitive species capturing and experimenting on crashed visitors. To everyone's surprise, Michael spoke up. "His name is Xorth. He's a botanist, not an invader. He's been here for weeks and has done nothing threatening." Agent Wilson seemed unmoved. "Nevertheless, protocols must be followed." Dr. Mercer tried a different approach. "At least let me show you what we've learned." Xorth has shared information about how Earth is viewed by galactic society. It's fascinating and concerning. Something in her tone caught Agent Wilson's attention. "Concerning how?" Dr. Mercer nodded to Xorth, who activated his datapad. A holographic display appeared, showing Earth's classification as an extreme death world and humans as potentially dangerous high-gravity adaptives. "According to galactic standards, we're the monsters," Dr. Mercer explained. "Our planet is considered so hostile that most species can't comprehend how we survive here. Our strength, resilience, and adaptability make us potentially threatening." Agent Wilson studied the display with growing interest. "Are you saying we have a reputation?" "A theoretical one," Xorth said, his translator now functioning correctly. "My people avoid contact with Death World species. We fear your physical capabilities and your ability to survive conditions we find lethal." A slow smile spread across Agent Wilson's face, not a friendly one, but one of calculation. "Dr. Mercer, I think we need to discuss this further. The implications for global security are significant." As the humans talked, Xorth realized his status had shifted. He was no longer just a stranded researcher. He had become an unwilling ambassador, caught between worlds. The humans were now aware of their place in the galactic perspective, and that knowledge would change everything. Dr. Mercer caught his eye and nodded slightly, a gesture of reassurance. Whatever happened next, at least he wasn't facing Earth's crushing gravity alone anymore. The government facility where Xorth now lived was far more comfortable than he had expected. His private quarters had been carefully modified to reduce gravity and adjust atmospheric composition. The room connected to a larger laboratory where Dr. Mercer and her team worked daily, studying his biology while he studied theirs. Agent Wilson had named the project Celestial Visitor, though Xorth found the name amusingly dramatic. The agent visited 3 times weekly, asking endless questions about galactic politics, technology, and especially about how other species viewed humans. "I still don't understand," Agent Wilson said during one session. "Why would anyone consider Earth particularly dangerous? There are planets with much more extreme conditions." Xorth projected a hologram from his datapad. It showed a comparison of several worlds. "By Silesian standards, your world is a nightmare. Your gravity would crush our bones. Your oxygen levels would poison our blood. Your temperature variations would kill most species within days. Dr. Mercer added, "It's not just the planet, Wilson. It's what the planet created." She pointed to a human anatomy chart. "Look at what we are from their perspective. Our muscle density, bone structure, and metabolic efficiency make us extraordinarily powerful compared to most spacefaring species." Wilson seemed pleased by this, which worried Soreth. The Silesian had learned that humans often displayed pride in their capabilities, sometimes to a fault. "That's why secrecy remains essential," Dr. Mercer continued. "If we want peaceful contact eventually, we can't approach this as a military advantage." Soreth appreciated Dr. Mercer's wisdom. Over the past month, she had become his closest human ally, even friend. She understood what many others did not. That knowledge should build bridges, not weapons. One morning, Dr. Mercer brought an unusual object to the lab, a small plant in a ceramic pot. "This is a gift," she said, placing it on Soreth's table. "It's called a cactus. I thought you might appreciate it as a botanist." Soreth examined the strange plant with its protective spines and water-storing tissue. "Fascinating adaptation. This evolved naturally. In Earth's deserts," Dr. Mercer explained, "places so dry most life can't survive." Soreth carefully touched one of the spines. "On my world, we have nothing like this. Our plants never needed such defensive mechanisms." He looked up at Dr. Mercer. "This small plant represents everything about why Earth is classified as it is. It had to become formidable just to survive." "Just like us," Dr. Mercer said quietly. That afternoon, while analyzing the cactus, Soreth experienced something unexpected. A distant signal ping on his personal communicator. The device had been dormant since the crash, its power too low to send or receive messages. But now a faint transmission had reached it. His heart raced as he triangulated the signal. A Silesian ship had entered the solar system. Likely responding to the automated distress call his damaged ship had managed to send before crashing. Rescue was coming, but Soreth felt an unexpected sense of dread rather than relief. When Dr. Mercer returned, Soreth showed her the signal data. "My people are coming," he explained. "They will arrive in approximately 7 Earth days." "That's wonderful," Dr. Mercer said, but then noted his expression. "Isn't it?" Soreth hesitated. "The hegemony protocols for contact with Deathworld species are not diplomatic. They will consider Earth contaminated and dangerous. They may recommend quarantine measures." "Quarantine? What does that mean exactly?" "Best case, they mark your solar system as forbidden and prevent all contact. Worst case," he couldn't finish the sentence. Dr. Mercer understood anyway. "We need to show them we're not a threat." That evening, Agent Wilson called an emergency meeting after learning about the approaching ship. Military officials joined by video conference, discussing defensive options and potential first strike capabilities. "Absolutely not," Soreth said firmly, surprising everyone with his forceful tone. "Any aggressive action would confirm their worst fears about Deathworlders." "Then what do you suggest?" Wilson asked, clearly frustrated. "Let me show them what I've learned about humans, not your weapons or physical abilities, but your adaptability, your creativity, your capacity for compassion." "Compassion won't help if they decide to sterilize our planet," one general remarked. Dr. Mercer intervened. "Actually, it might be our strongest argument. Soreth, tell them what happened when you first crashed." Soreth nodded. "I was stranded, dying in what I considered a toxic hellscape, but humans helped me. First Michael, then the firefighters, then Dr. Mercer. None of you had ever seen my species before, yet your first instinct was to assist, not attack." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The next 5 days were a whirlwind of preparation. Soreth and Dr. Mercer compiled evidence of human culture, art, scientific achievement, and medical ethics. They prepared demonstrations showing how humans had used their remarkable adaptability to heal rather than harm, to build rather than destroy. Xorith spent hours recording a message for the Silesian ship, explaining his experiences and urging caution and respect when dealing with humans. On the sixth day, an unexpected visitor arrived at the facility, a young human female in a wheelchair. She was pale and thin, with a bright smile that seemed at odds with her frail appearance. "This is my daughter, Lily," Dr. Mercer explained. "She has a rare genetic condition that affects her muscle development." Xorith was confused. "Why have you brought her here?" Dr. Mercer smiled. "Because she wanted to meet you, and because she's important to what we're trying to show your people." Lily wheeled herself closer to Xorith. "Mom says your people think we're super strong and scary because our planet is tough." "That is correct," Xorith said, unsure how to interact with the young human. "But I'm not strong," Lily said simply. "And lots of humans aren't. We get sick, we get hurt, we have disabilities. But other humans help us, invent things to make our lives better." She spun around in her specialized wheelchair. "Someone designed this so I could move around on my own." Dr. Mercer placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Humanity's greatest strength isn't our physical adaptability to this death world. It's our social adaptability, our ability to care for each other despite our vulnerabilities." Horist, suddenly understanding. "You're right. The hegemony has misunderstood completely. They see only the threat of what humans could do because of your evolutionary advantages. But they need to see what we actually do with those advantages," Lily finished. As the Silesian ship drew closer to Earth, Xorith felt more certain than ever that his people had been wrong. These Deathworlders weren't monsters. They were complex beings whose harshest world had forged in them not just physical strength, but remarkable emotional resilience. What the Silesian hegemony feared most about humans was precisely what made them worthy of galactic citizenship. The Silesian ship entered Earth orbit silently, its advanced cloaking technology hiding it from human detection systems. Only the specialized equipment in Dr. Mercer's lab could track its presence. The vessel was small by hegemony standards, a scout ship designed for reconnaissance and potential extraction of stranded researchers. "They're here," Xorith announced, his 4 eyes fixed on the tracking screen. Despite the modifications to his quarters, he still moved with difficulty in Earth's gravity. "They've initiated standard quarantine protocols." Agent Wilson checked his tablet. "Our satellites are reporting nothing. Your technology isn't advanced enough to detect them yet," Xorith explained. "But they can see you, and they're watching." Dr. Mercer joined them, her expression tense. "Have they sent any communications?" "Not yet. They're likely assessing the situation first." Xorith's voice carried an edge of concern. "In standard protocol, they would observe for 24 of your hours before making contact." "What happens then?" Lily asked from her wheelchair. She had become a regular presence in the lab, fascinated by the alien botanist. Before Xorith could answer, his communication device chimed. The screen displayed a message in flowing Silesian script. His posture stiffened as he read it. "They're ordering me to prepare for immediate extraction," he translated. "They've classified Earth as a Class 5 contaminated death world. They're—" He paused, his voice dropping. "They're debating whether sterilization measures are appropriate." Sterilization. Agent Wilson's hand moved instinctively toward his sidearm. "Are they threatening to attack?" "Not attack," Xorith clarified. "Quarantine. They would deploy atmosphere-altering compounds to make Earth uninhabitable to humans, but preserve most of the ecosystem for future study." The room fell silent. Dr. Mercer was the first to speak. "You have to talk to them. Make them understand." Xorith nodded grimly. "I'll request direct communication." Hours passed as Xorith transmitted message after message to the orbiting ship. Finally, the main screen in the lab flickered to life. A tall, slender Silesian appeared, Commander Vizel of the Hegemony Scout Division. His blue-gray skin was marked with the distinguished patterns of high rank. "Researcher Xorith," the commander spoke in their native language, which Dr. Mercer's systems translated for the humans. You appear physically intact despite prolonged exposure to Deathworld conditions. Prepare for extraction. We depart in 6 hours. Commander, I request formal reassessment of this world's classification. Xorth responded, following the strict protocol of hegemony scientific procedure. The commander's secondary eyes narrowed. Denied. Our scans confirm all previous data. This planet exceeds survivable parameters for civilized species. Yet a civilization has evolved here, Xorth countered. An advanced one worthy of contact, not quarantine. Commander Vizel studied the humans visible behind Xorth. These Deathworlders have captured you. We detected your damaged craft. Your judgment may be compromised by survival trauma or coercion. Dr. Mercer stepped forward. I am Dr. Eliza Mercer. We haven't captured Xorth. We saved him. We've been helping him survive while learning from each other. The commander ignored her, addressing Xorth directly. The extraction team will retrieve you and any critical research. Prepare your belongings. The transmission ended abruptly. That went well, Agent Wilson said sarcastically. Xorth turned to face the humans. They won't listen. They've already decided. His shoulders slumped. According to hegemony protocols, Commander Vizel has the authority to implement quarantine measures if he deems a species too dangerous for contact. How much time do we have? Dr. Mercer asked. Hours, perhaps. Once they extract me, they'll likely begin atmospheric seeding immediately. Lily wheeled closer to Xorth. But you can't let them. You know we're not dangerous. Not like they think. Xorth looked at the young human, then at the others who had helped him survive on this world that should have killed him. He straightened his posture, decision made. I need access to your global communication network, he said firmly. Agent Wilson frowned. Why? Because I'm going to break the most sacred rule of the Silesian hegemony. I'm going to share advanced knowledge with a Deathworld species. For the next 3 hours, Xorth worked frantically with Dr. Mercer's team. They modified Earth's most powerful radio telescope array to transmit on hegemony emergency frequencies, a technical violation of dozens of hegemony non-interference laws. This will reach beyond just Commander Vizel, Xorth explained as they worked. It will transmit to all nearby hegemony vessels and relay stations. The Science Council itself will receive it. The message Xorth prepared was simple but revolutionary. It included comprehensive data on human physiology, culture, and ethics, focused not on their physical capabilities, but on their social structures, art, and medicine. Most importantly, it included footage of humans caring for their vulnerable members, hospitals, special education classrooms, and adaptive technologies. The final piece was a recording of Lily explaining to Xorth how her wheelchair worked, demonstrating how humans use their adaptability to support each other rather than dominate. Ready to transmit, Dr. Mercer announced. Xorth hesitated. Once I do this, I can never return to the hegemony. This violation of the non-interference directive is punishable by permanent exile. You don't have to do this, Dr. Mercer said softly. We could find another way. Xorth looked around at the humans who had shown him kindness on this supposed hellworld. No, the hegemony is wrong about Earth. Your planet isn't just a death world. It's a crucible that forged something remarkable. He pressed the transmit button. Almost immediately, the lab's communication system chimed with an incoming message, not just from Commander Vizel's ship, but from a much larger vessel that had just dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Earth's moon. The screen displayed an elderly Silesian with elaborate rank markings. I am Science Director Kelzer of the Hegemony Council. Researcher Xorth, your unauthorized transmission has been received. Xorth bowed his head, expecting condemnation. It seems, the director continued, that our classification system requires updating. Xorth looked up in surprise. Commander Vizel's quarantine order is suspended pending full review. Your data suggests a new classification category may be necessary. The director's secondary eyes focused on the humans, not merely a death world, but a crucible world, one whose harsh conditions forged species with unique potential. 3 days later, Sorith stood outside the facility under the open sky, breathing Earth's air through an improved filter. Beside him, Dr. Mercer, Lily, and Agent Wilson watched as a Silesian shuttle descended. "Are you sure about this?" Dr. Mercer asked. "You could stay." Sorith shook his head. "I need to guide the reclassification process. As the first Silesian to truly understand humans, it's my responsibility." The shuttle landed, and Director Kelzer emerged. To everyone's surprise, he removed his protective gear and took a careful step onto Earth's soil, visibly struggling with the gravity. "So this is what a death world feels like," the director said, his voice trained but curious. "Remarkable that anything could evolve here, let alone a spacefaring civilization." "That's why they're special," Sorith replied. "What doesn't kill them makes them stronger, but not just physically. They grow stronger in their connections, their compassion, their creativity." Director Kelzer surveyed the landscape, then the humans. "The Galactic Council will need convincing. Many species will fear humans simply for what they are. Then we'll show them what humans do, not just what they could do," Sorith said confidently. Lily wheeled forward and handed Sorith a small pot containing the cactus. "Take this with you. When they don't understand us, show them this. Tell them even our plants are tough but beautiful." Sorith carefully took the gift. "I will return," he promised. "The next time, not as a crashed victim of a death world, but as an ambassador to humanity's new allies." As he boarded the shuttle, Sorith took one last look at Earth, the world that had nearly killed him, yet had taught him more than a lifetime of hegemony education. In the Silesian classification system, the word for death world and teacher shared the same root. How appropriate, he thought. Earth wasn't hell for aliens. It was a classroom for the galaxy, one whose toughest lessons yielded the most valuable insights.